Welcome to our deep dive into Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace. We've got excerpts from the book itself, not any like essays or anything.
Yeah.
And it seems like we're going to be digging into the characters and some cool moments that Tolstoy sprinkle in. So get ready for grand balls, battlefields, family drama, all that good stuff.
Exactly. We'll try to weave together these excerpts and see what kind of picture of Tolstoy's world we can get.
Okay, cool. So the first excerpt drops us right into one of Anna Pavlovna's soirees. You can almost hear the gossip, right?
These soirees are really interesting. They're more than just gatherings, right? They're like a tiny picture of all of Russian high society.
Yeah. And some of those power dynamics are fascinating. Like Tolstoy introduces us to these master manipulators. I'm thinking of Princess Drubetskaya. She's so determined to get her son a good military position.
And she'll use anyone to get it right.
Totally. She's a fascinating character. Ambitious and desperate.
Yeah. And the way Tolstoy shows her true intentions is brilliant. It's all through indirect discourse, you know? He doesn't tell us exactly what she's thinking, but we get it through her actions.
Like when she basically begs Prince Vasily to pull some strings for her son. Ugh. So awkward. But also a little sad. I mean, she's desperate, crap.
Totally. And the way Prince Vasily talks to her, like she's some kind of bear he has to train, it shows how little he thinks of her.
He's playing the game too, though, isn't he? Prince Vasily. Always calculating.
Oh, yeah. He's always looking for an advantage.
Speaking of advantage,
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't waste a second when the topic of Pierre Bezukhov's inheritance comes up, does he?
No, not at all. It's almost like he sees people as chess pieces, you know? And Pierre, now that he's the most eligible bachelor in Russia, he's like the most important piece.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a sudden change. 1 minute, Pierre's the awkward outsider. The next, he's the center of attention.
That shift is key to understanding Tolstoy. He's really dissecting human nature, you know? Like how money and social status can change everything.
So even in these early scenes, we get these hints about how money and power can corrupt things.
Totally. And that really sets the stage for Pierre's internal struggles later, because now he has this wealth and it brings temptations.
Oh, speaking of temptations,
Yeah.
Natasha Rostova. She comes in like a whirlwind at her first grand ball.
Such youthful energy. It's a stark contrast to characters like Drubetskaya, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's intentional on Tolstoy's part. Like, he's highlighting how fleeting innocence can be.
Right. You know, it's almost foreshadowing the heartbreak she's going to face later, all the drama, you know, love and loss and family.
There's this one scene where Natasha's dancing and she's just radiant. Like, you can feel the excitement, but there's this hint of sadness too, almost.
You're right. It's like Tolstoy is saying, enjoy this moment because things change.
He's such a master of foreshadowing. Like, are you saying we should be paying attention to even the smallest details?
Absolutely. Every word is there for a reason. He's creating this really intricate tapestry. So yeah, the details matter.
Okay, good to know. So we've got these opulent ballrooms and all this society stuff. But then the story shifts dramatically, doesn't it? I mean, when it moves to the battlefields, it's like a whole different world.
Yeah. It's jarring, right? That shift in tone is really important. It shows how war just disrupts everything, forces characters to think about life and death and all those big questions.
Like, doesn't matter how much money you have or what your title is when you're facing a cannon, right?
That's a great way to put it. And now we have two new characters who are about to experience war firsthand. Prince Andrew and Nicholas Rostov. Prince Andrew starts out wanting glory, you know, to escape that empty feeling he has with high society. But Tolstoy shows us how war changes him, like it strips away all his illusions.
Yeah. Makes those ballrooms seem pretty far away, huh?
Right. And at the Battle of Austerlitz, he has this big realization.
That's right. Didn't he have like an epiphany? Something about Napoleon?
Yeah. He sees Napoleon, who he thought was this amazing figure, and realizes he's just a man, a small man. It changes everything for Prince Andrew, makes him search for something deeper.
Which leads him to Natasha, right? Their love story is so intense, but it always felt kind of doomed, you know?
Totally. Tolstoy shows love in all its messy glory. The highs and lows, the heartbreak.
Speaking of heartbreak, Anatole, what a jerk. To manipulate Natasha like that when she was engaged to Prince Andrew.
Ah, I know. Anatole represents the worst of the aristocracy, all about himself, never thinking about the consequences.
It's hard to like him, that's for sure.
Ah.
But he's also a fascinating character, right? Like, not just a one-dimensional villain.
You're right. He's charming in his own way, but also a victim of his own shallowness, I guess.
True. But he still hurts Natasha so badly. She's young, makes mistakes.
Yeah. And her story makes you think, right? About forgiveness and redemption. And the pressures on women back then. Like, did she really have a choice, or was she just following what society expected of her?
That ties into the whole free will versus determinism thing. It seems like Tolstoy's always wrestling with that.
He is, and he never gives a clear answer. It's like he's saying, our lives are a mix of choices we make and things we can't control.
It can make your head spin, for sure. But it's also true to life, isn't it?
Absolutely. Tolstoy just shows us how complex life is. Makes us think about those questions along with the characters.
And then there's Pierre, always searching for something, but constantly messing up.
Pierre, his journey is so relatable. He has all this money, but he's lost. His marriage to Helene was a disaster, and then that duel with Dolokhov.
That duel was crazy. You feel the tension as Pierre faces Dolokhov, and all over a perceived insult to Helene, even though he knows it's all pointless.
Exactly, and that's Tolstoy critiquing those social conventions. Shows how easily men can be drawn into violence, even when it makes no sense.
So even the action scenes have these deeper layers. It's not just about the plot.
Nope. There's always something more going on. And speaking of the bigger picture, we've got to talk more about Napoleon.
He's like this shadow hanging over everything, even when he's not there in the scene.
Right. Because the characters are living through his wars, he's always on their minds.
Yeah, Napoleon represents this powerful force.
Yeah.
Terrifying and exciting at the same time.
Exactly. And Tolstoy uses him to explore all these themes: ambition, power, the way history impacts our lives.
It's interesting to see how people react to him, too. Some admire him, some fear him.
Like in that one scene where someone calls him a genius and someone else is like, genius, what about all the people who died? It's powerful stuff.
Totally. Tolstoy doesn't tell us what to think, does he? He just gives us all these different viewpoints.
He's a master of that. And it's why War and Peace is so timeless. It's messy and complicated, just like life.
So we've got these big historical events, these personal struggles, and then there are the relationships. They connect everyone.
War and Peace is about human connection, that's for sure.
It's not all happy, though, is it? Tolstoy shows the bad sides, too, like jealousy and betrayal.
Of course. He wants to show us the whole truth about relationships, how they can lift us up and break us down.
The relationship between Prince Andrew and his sister, Mary, always struck me. They love each other, but there's so much tension, too.
I know. It's because of how women were treated back then. Mary wants love and marriage, but she has all these duties.
And their father. That old prince is a piece of work.
He's tough, for sure, but he loves his kids in his own way.
He just wants to control them,
Yeah.
to protect them from making the same mistakes he did.
Yeah. It's that age-old conflict, tradition versus change, another big theme in War and Peace.
It's amazing how Tolstoy blends all these things together.
He's showing us how those personal stories are part of history, too. And through those relationships, we see the effects of war, the pain of loss, the search for meaning and all the chaos.
It's a lot to process.
It is, but it's so rewarding. Like, you're really engaging with life's big questions.
And even though it's set in a different time, it all still feels relevant.
Totally. Human nature doesn't change that much. We still struggle with the same things. Love, loss, ambition.
We might not be fighting Napoleon, but we all have our own battles, right?
Absolutely. And that's why people still connect with War and Peace. It shows us we're not alone in our struggles.
Wow, that's beautiful. But before we finish this part of our deep dive, there's one character I'm really curious about, Anatole Kuragin. He's charming, but also kind of scary.
Anatole. He's so complex. On the surface, he's got everything. Looks, charm, money. But underneath, he's reckless and selfish. Doesn't care who he hurts.
He's like a bull in a china shop, leaving a mess everywhere he goes.
Yeah, good analogy. He just wants pleasure, doesn't think about the consequences.
It's not just what he does either. It's how he pulls people in, makes them part of his schemes. Like, remember when he convinces Dolokhov to drink that whole bottle of rum? While sitting on the window ledge.
Oh, yeah. Classic Anatole. Always pushing things too far. And he has this charisma, right? Makes people want to follow him, even when they know they shouldn't.
It's tempting, I guess, to live like that. No rules.
Yeah.
But as we see with Natasha, it's dangerous.
For sure. Anatole is like a warning sign. Shows us that what looks good on the outside isn't always good for us.
So why is he like that? Is it all just selfishness, or is there more to it?
That's a good question. And Tolstoy doesn't really answer it, which makes Anatole even more interesting.
He's a mystery, then. This force of temptation that can really mess things up.
Yeah. He's a contrast to characters like Prince Andrew and Pierre. They're trying to be good, trying to find meaning.
As we've been talking, it's striking how much these chance encounters affect the characters. like these random events that change everything.
That's so true. Tolstoy believed in that. Chance and coincidence. He saw history as this tangled web, not just a straight line.
So it's not all about big decisions. Sometimes it's the little things that really matter.
Yeah. Those small moments can change everything. Think about when Prince Andrew goes back to the army. It's because he runs into Natasha at a ball, or when Rostov goes hunting. That one decision leads to so much.
It makes you wonder about free will, If all this stuff is just random, do we really have control?
It's the question, isn't it? Tolstoy wrestles with it, but he doesn't give us an answer. It's like our lives are a mix of choices and just stuff happening.
So maybe it's not about denying fate, but about how we deal with it.
Yeah. The characters who do well in War and Peace, they adapt, they learn, they find meaning, even when things are tough.
So maybe it's about being humble, knowing we're not always in charge.
I like that.
Yeah.
And being open to learning from everything that happens to us, good or bad.
Well, this has been amazing. We've talked about everything from those fancy parties to the battlefield, love, loss, war, and we've just scratched the surface of War and Peace.
It's a book you can read over and over and find something new every time. I hope you keep exploring it.
Me too. Maybe someday I'll even read the whole thing.
You should. You won't regret it.
So to our listener, we really encourage you to keep reading War and Peace. See what you discover.
Like Tolstoy said, patience and time are powerful.
So true. Take your time with this book. Let yourself be swept away by it.
Happy reading.
Until next time.